Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and start before I decide to just go and run in my kitchen, which I feel that's my safety zone. So hi everyone. My name is Rhoda St. Luce. I am a chef and clinical nutritionist based out in Grosse Pointe Farms, and I work out of the Helm. Today we're going to be talking about glycemic index and the importance of low carbs, eating low carbs foods, or as we call it, low glycemic foods. So the agenda today is what is the glycemic index, examples of low glycemic foods, examples of high glycemic foods, the danger of glycemic foods, and healthy carbs versus problematic carbs. I try to use words that are not like, I say problematic because, we only have one life to live, and sometimes we do want, a cookie or the chocolate bar. And, doing everything in moderation is important. So I don't want to say bad foods, which I understand that that's a term that people use often. I just want to call it problematic. So if you do at least 80% of the time you're doing well, then you have 20% of the time where you can, cheat a little or have your problematic foods. The meaning of glycemic index measures how specific foods increases your blood sugar level. The glycemic index ranks carbohydrates on a scale from 1 to 100. The higher the glycemic index is, the greater the risk for high blood glucose level. So can anyone tell me what is a problematic carbs? Before I go to the next screen.
Potatoes, bread.
Okay.
A problematic carb.
Okay.
With high processed sugar.
Yeah. So basically, your high glycemic food, your high carbohydrates are processed grains, which is your wheats, your white breads. And someone might say, well, what about whole wheat? Towards the end of the slideshow, I hope you understand why whole wheat is a problematic carb or glycemic food. Okay. Examples of low glycemic index foods. Low glycemic index foods are any foods with an index lower than 55 on the glycemic scale. So that's most fruits and vegetables, whole grains, especially sprouted, beans, legumes, nuts, and seeds, and low-fat dairy product. So the reason why this has an asterisk next to it is because sometimes your low-fat foods, although it may tend to be healthy, it is also usually heavily processed, and they do a lot of added sugars to make it taste good because they strip the fat from the food. So you really want to be careful, especially for those of us who are suffering from insulin resistance, because it's low fat dairy products is not always the way to go. High glycemic index foods are typically foods that are greater than 55 on the index scale. Examples are all juices, white rice, white potatoes, white bread, pastries, and some healthy foods. So if you're saying, well, why are some healthy foods on the high glycemic index? It's because of the carbs, like parsnips, lychee, and whole wheat bread. So for those of you who love your whole wheat bread, it's a high glycemic food. So what makes this whole wheat bread, what you can do, you turn it into a whole grain. and so whole grain bread is better because that resistant starch, what it does is it satiates your stomach, and you do not get that, sugar spike, and so it takes a lot longer for that whole grain bread to be processed into your body.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so the danger of high glycemic foods. These foods are typically your highly processed foods such as juices, sweet corn, white potatoes, etc. When these foods are consumed, it is absorbed and digested quickly into the body. High glycemic foods may cause your blood sugar level to spike. Continuous eating of high glycemic foods may lead to heart disease and type 2 diabetes. According to a 2023 article written in the Harvard Health, a serving of white rice has almost the same effect as eating pure table sugar, which results in a quick rise in blood sugar, whereas a serving of lentils has a slower effect. Who likes lentils?
Maybe if it was like prepared differently, because like the way I've had it, I'm like, it's not very good.
Okay. So the reason why I asked that question is because a lot of the times, like I try to tell my clients as well, like, if you can go meatless, at least one day out of the week, lentils is a really, really good way to go meatless one day out of the week, because it's very, very high in protein. It has that carb that you need as well, but then it also is very high in protein, so you're getting both as well. Yeah. So that's just a little tip. Okay, so I like to do this, eat this, not that. And I left out a lot of things that I really wanted to put on this list. So instead of eating white rice, we eat brown rice. I say to try to make your rice as organic as possible if you can. Just because depending on where it's grown, rice can carry a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't remember the word, but I'll get it. If any of you know that word that I'm looking for, you can tell me. Instant oats. So instead of eating instant oats, steel cut oats. And again, the reason why, it's because it takes a longer time to digest in your stomach. Corn flakes. Instead of eating corn flakes, we say the whole grain bran flakes. Again, corn, most of the corn that is produced in America is actually genetically modified. So I say that for cereal, I just say do away with cereal altogether and have a bowl of fruit with, some Greek yogurt, but instead of eating white bread, I say, again, the whole grain. I prefer sprouted whole grain, and the reason why is that when they germinate that seed and it's sprouted, it actually increases that bread. It becomes a nutrient-dense bread that you're eating. And then, so that means that the protein in the bread goes way up. The carb comes down, and so your stomach feels more satiated, more full when you eat that sprouted grain versus the whole grain bread. So in my opinion, whole grain sprouted bread has more nutrients than just a plain whole grain bread. Again, the sweet corn, instead of doing the corn, we want to do leafy greens. A tip is that half of your plate should be vegetables or leafy greens, and which again, super high. Leafy greens are also super high in fiber. And what does fiber do? Fiber helps to keep you fuller longer. Instead of white potatoes, I say, well, studies have shown baked sweet potato, but I say eat in moderation, because if you are insulin resistant, you may have, you may be sensitive to sweet potatoes, because sweet potatoes do have its own sugar in there. And juice. Juice, I say cut out all juices, especially if you're not making it yourself, and just do, I say water, but I love sparkling water. You can get me to drink sparkling water any day, anytime. And, you can also put, frozen fruit in your sparkling water, jazz it up a little, and make it to your liking. But juices, I say 0 to all juices. Yeah, no matter what, 0 to all juices. So, any questions? Before you actually, I'm going to also hand out this cheat sheet, which shows your low glycemic foods. We did not talk about the middle glycemic foods, because again, we want to stay on the low glycemic index chart, where anything that is below 55, and then you also get to see what is the high glycemic foods are. So you could take one and pass it back. Okay, so any questions?
So I know you talked about low-fat dairy, but just dairy in general, like cheese, eggs, yogurts, does that have, like, say for example, I'm a huge consumer of I think it's the Oeko Zero high protein yogurts, and they say low sugar, no sugar, no specifically. I have checked the ingredients. I don't see anything that looks crazy, but then I've always just kind of wondered that I consume like so many of them a week. So what do you say about yogurts in general?
So I say Greek yogurt is the best.
They are Greek yogurt.
Yeah, so it's high in protein. I say if you're doing Greek yogurt, you do not need to do low-fat Greek yogurt, because there's no such thing, because they are putting preservatives in there. So when if you're going to go the yogurt route, I say go Greek, because some Greek yogurt one serving can have as much as 15 to 19 grams per serving of protein. So it'll probably have maybe about 6 grams of fat, but that's not that big of a deal. So for those of you who may not know, that your brain is actually 75% fat. So your brain actually needs that fat to function and to live. If you are in the baby boomer era, which is the cutoff point is the year 1964, a lot of those baby boomers now are suffering from dementia slash Alzheimer's disease, and it's because in their era, the low fat came out as a big thing to help people to be healthy. But so Alzheimer's and dementia, it's also known as diabetes part 3. So you're starving your brain from that fat that it needs. And so I say that, again, everything in moderation. But if you're going to go to the yogurt route, just go Greek, full fat, twice a week. Yeah, you'll be okay.
I want to ask a question. What about you mentioned lentil? Now, what is the best way to make lentil? They sell it in a can, lentil soup, in a package, frozen. Like, what would be the best route?
So in my kitchen, you're going to see all dry beans, just because for me that anything that comes in a can probably has preservatives, especially beans. Some beans you can find in water. I do not oppose, legumes or, other beans that are in a can, especially if it's packed in water. But most people buy it packed in salt and everything else, because they want to take the shortcut to, prepare the food. However, what I say is you soak your beans. After you rinse it, you soak it, you rinse it out, and then you put it in a crock pot. You put your flavor in, you set it, you forget it. The next morning, you have your food, you have your lentils. I teach my clients how to cook lentils in their rice, in their rice pot, and it's very easy. Again, you do the same thing. You wash it, you let it puff up. You put it in the rice pot, you close it, you sprinkle whatever seasoning you want on it, and then in about 30 minutes, you have lentils or less.
And it is a lot of fiber?
Yeah, so there's a lot of fiber in lentils as well as a lot of protein. The reason why I know there's about 19 grams of protein in a cup of lentils is because a lot of people say, well, how can you live a plant-based lifestyle and where does your protein come from? So, there you go. Okay. Yeah, so you'd use chickpeas the same way, red beans the same way, black beans the same way, pinto beans the same way, lima beans. All of those beans, you buy it dry, you just soak it, you rinse it out. And a tip is if you put some ginger in there, it's going to help you digest it better. Yeah.
So you can just basically like eating lentils or anything as almost like a side dish with your veggies and so it may be a substitute for like rice.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because it's low on the glycemic risk or something like that?
Because it's lower. Lentils fall in the middle, right? However, is what you pair it with. Because one thing that the glycemic index chart doesn't do, it doesn't take into account, how you're eating the food and what you're pairing it with, and that's on any food, So you just want to be careful in how you pair the food. If you're going to, bless you, if you're going to do lentils, I would say you can do lentils as your protein, or if you want to do baked fish, you eat the fish last, you start with the lentils, and because by the time you're ready to eat that fish, the lentils, it's already in the stomach, doing processing, doing the digestive. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions?
I guess we're ready for the kitchen.
So the next step is, so if you do have any questions, my contact information is down below, and I'm free to answer any questions that you may have. So, in the kitchen, I am going to be demonstrating a low glycemic meal. I should say side dish. Yeah. Okay, so, yep. I can leave this.
So that all I could try. Okay.